Malaysia, you there? I am. Fantastic. I have started the recording. So, I mean, we've got 2 minutes to go, but the recording is on. So when you're ready to go, you can kick start. The people can come in automatically. So we don't need anybody to let them in. Okay. Perfect. I'll start promptly at 10. Thank you. Fantastic. Thanks so much. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our She is Power Voices of Change session this morning. Just some background in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion within our business. We started our journey in 2020 through a very specific focus on social cohesion, unconscious bias, and allyship, being very intentional, however, around race and generational diversity. Inclusion is a key pillar in our EVP, as we truly believe that an inclusive world is an enabled world. Our Youth Solver program was specifically designed with the intention to provide our younger generation team members with a platform that raised their voice. More importantly, for them to be able to form, storm, and norm as a team in a very self-directed work environment that they had to actually execute in terms of social economic development projects. So it is an absolute honor this morning for me to introduce you to Mmaphuthi Nkwana, aka my Navy SEAL, as I'd like to call her, who will be our voice of change this morning. In preparing for this, she and I had a very good conversation in relation to storytelling. And this was my key takeaway, in that storytelling is a powerful tool for which we can learn, break barriers, create relatability, and more importantly, appreciate the uniqueness that is each and every one of us. Telling our stories gives others permission to step out in courage, to be vulnerable, and most importantly, for us to build on our humanity. So in quoting Amanda Gorman, "For there is always light if we're only brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it." So shine on, Mmaphuthi. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Melisha. And I really appreciate the kind words that you have shared with everyone and myself. And I am truly honored to have been asked to give a talk today. And today I will be talking about the power of generational diversity, crafting the future. This is quite important to me because as a young person, you're not always given the opportunity to grow and the opportunity to become a leader. But with the guidance of those people around me who were very experienced and who were committed to my development, I was then able to become the person that I am today. So I'm quite honored to share my story on how I have been able to make the impact that I have through the last 3 years. So as you may know, our generations have been categorized, and depending on the sources that you look at, the birth years ranges may deviate a year or two. Oh, sorry, I'm just realizing right now that I have not shared screen. I apologize for that. Let me quickly share my screen. Apologies for that. Okay, great. So as you can see on your screen, we've got the different generation categories. And you may have heard of these generation types, from your baby boomers right through to your generation alphas who are keeping us on our toes currently. Each generation is apparently shaped by the historical, social, and economical concepts of their formative years, influencing their values and behaviors and attitudes. When we have a look at the baby boomers, who were the frontiers of science and engineering post the World Wars, who experienced economic growth through the spread of these advancements. And then we have a look at the Generation X. When I think of the Generation X, I think of them with big hair, good music taste, freedom, and they showed resilience through a lot of social and economic challenges. Then it's the millennials. Now, I'm part of the millennial group. Growing up through the tech boom, Gen Zers can tell us apart by how we dress, since apparently only we wear skinny jeans, or how we put our hands up in the air when we're dancing. But I ask the question, who's going to raise the roof? At the gym, they tell us apart by how we wear ankle socks. And apparently, that's a dead giveaway. But in my eyes, it's how we've managed to look so young for our ages. And lastly, it's the Gen Zers. But instead of defining them, I would rather like to play a game called Do You Know Your Gen Z Slang? So on the screen, you'll see a word or a phrase typically used by Gen Zers, and you'll have to choose which option best defines what it means. So is it either excellent or amazing, surprising or scary, beautiful or handsome? While when a young person says something slaps, it means it's excellent or amazing. Next, we look at the word snatched. Is it either taking something with force, being fierce or on point, or being exhausted? But apparently, being snatched is being fierce or on point. And lastly, when something hits different, is it either something is weird or unusual, confusing or nonsensical, or has a marked effect or influence? It's having a marked effect or influence. And I hope we all got those correct. And if you have gotten them all correct, you officially speak Gen Z. Now that we have a better idea of of the different generational categories, we need to ask, what is generational diversity? Well, I decided to ask ChatGPT. And ChatGPT says that generational diversity refers to the presence and inclusion of multiple generations within a workplace or organization. It recognizes that different generations bring varied perspectives and experiences, skills, and values to the table. This diversity can significantly impact how teams function, communicate, and innovate. This is a broad global definition, though, and we have to ask now, what is generational diversity in the South African context? Due to South Africa's racial past, the generations are defined differently. Each generation experiences is forged by the environment and social issues around them. When we have a look at the labor force survey results for Q1 for 2024, so this is March 2024 from Stats SA, we see that there's a high representation of people between the age ranges of 25 to 34 years old, 35 to 44 years old, and 45 to 54 years old. And that spans 3 different generation categories: the Gen X's, the millennials, and Gen Zs in comparison to the other generations. These cohorts roughly span South Africa's official working age, which is between 15 to 34 years old, as used by Stats SA. Each generation is uniquely impacted and forged by how the country's traumatic past has influenced their worldview. This is further split by race, generation, and culture. Each person's social economic status is additional factors diversifying these generation groups. This presents a unique case for generational diversity in our country. This has inspired the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies being employed, not only in the workplace, but by the state as well, to try redress previous disadvantages placed on large groups of our population and advocate for equal opportunities for all. Some have tried to recategorize our generations by our eras. This presents 5 new cohorts, which would be the apartheid generation, the struggle generation, the transition generation, the free generation, aka born frees, and not to forget, Amma 2000s. This is an attempt to categorize our different generations based on the eras of our country's past. However, even within these categories, we find ourselves with different lived experiences. This adds additional layers of complexities in navigating diversity and introduces intersectionality. This concept recognizes the people's experience and in discrimination and privilege in complex, interconnected ways, rather than through a single axis lens. Some of the challenges presented by generational diversity in South Africa, from a high mix of generations in the workplace due to an influx of young people in the workforce and the retirement being delayed due to several reasons such as the economy. In these multi-generational workplaces, there is a wide diversity of values, preferred communication styles, mental well-being issues, and preferred methods of working. These differences even stretch to how employees dress for work. And when leaders understand the different characters of each generation, each race group, and gender, they will more easily discover the strengths of each generation and be able to use these to improve collaboration. I found a TED Talk video I feel best highlights this diversity, particularly how I felt when I first entered the workplace and had to navigate working with people of different ages. And this is by Mitch Molozov, and I hope the message he shares will also resonate with you all.
Do you remember applying for your first job? Man, I was so nervous. I needed to go up to this guy named Ken, who was about 40 years older than me, and he had, let's call it an intimidating resting face. So I was 15 years old, going to high school. My favorite sport on the planet is gymnastics. And a couple of my friends on the team would stay after classes to teach sports to kids and gymnastics to these students after high school. And Ken ran a company that would partner with park districts and help facilitate teaching these classes. And I thought, how cool would that be to be able to work there? And so I asked one of my friends after class, how can I get a job here? And he said, you need to go up to Ken, introduce yourself, and ask him for a job. Okay. I come into the gymnastics gym. I see Ken's there. Heart starts throbbing. I walk up, stick out my hand, introduce myself. "Hi, Ken, it's a pleasure to meet you." And we start talking. Turns out Ken, very genuinely nice human being. But as we were talking, we discovered, or I discovered, that I couldn't work for him until I turned 16. So he said, "Call me back when you're 16 and we can talk about it." Months go by, I haven't seen Ken, haven't talked to him, and it's my 16th birthday. Family's starting to come around, they're coming to the house to celebrate. I leave to the room, go into the study, take out my phone, find his contact information, and heart starts throbbing again. I dial, phone starts ringing, and Ken picks up. I said, "Ken, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Mitch. We talked months ago. You told me it was when I turned 16, and today's my 16th birthday. I'd love the opportunity to work for you and teach gymnastics to these kids." He was so impressed that I called him on my actual 16th birthday that he gave me the job right then and there. And so I was celebrating my birthday, celebrating being employed legally the first day I could. And what occurred to me later on was this success was a success that derived from adapting to a different generation. See, the way that I applied for that job was much more normative to what Ken experienced in his generation. There was no fancy application. There was no phone I was pulling out on social media, finding the job, applying. I introduced myself, shook his hand, followed up on the phone when I told him I'd follow up. And that led to a job offer. Years later, after graduating college, I moved to work for a consulting company. And it occurs to me pretty quickly that there are people in the workplace that were thinking very differently than I was. See, it turned out I was the first and I was the oldest of the youngest generation entering the workforce. I was the first of the Gen Z entering the workforce. And I thought, man, going into a consulting company, what a value add. Because I saw all these different generations showing up, and all of them were thinking and approaching work differently than I was. Some had a tremendous work ethic. Some were focused on mission impact in organizations. There were some that were working hard to live, and there was others that loved what they did, so they lived so they could work more. But you know what was interesting across all these different generations, all these different value systems? The one thing they had in common, they all thought their way was the best way. And so I remember I was going to approach this client, and their entire department was being run on paper. Everything was printed out, everything was filed, and I saw what an amazing opportunity to create value. Here I am, Gen Z, I got an amazing proposal for you. We're gonna automate, we're gonna streamline, we're gonna get it in the cloud. And they looked at me, looked up, looked back, and said, "Why would we do that?" And I was taken aback. Here I am with what I thought is this innovative idea, but it's being responded to as if I'm being not innovative, but irresponsible. And there was almost this resistance, not a conflict, but we began to have difficulty because what I thought would help the organization, they thought I was putting the organization at risk. Where I thought they were being stagnant to change, they thought I was being reckless. And this difference in perspective began to occur. And I realized and I started seeing this wasn't the only gap in the workplace. Different generations kept on having different gaps because they had different value systems. And so in order to begin to bridge that, I began to study and learn this, I realized we can't just look at the value systems. We need to look one layer beneath at what behavior patterns translate into those value systems, and actually go even beneath that to look at what occurred during their formative years. See, if we can look at what occurs during their formative years, what they grew up with in the workplace, that shows us the behavior patterns that occur, that shows us the value that they bring to the table. And so from my scenario growing up, I grew up immersed in technology. Internet, always there. Social media, pretty much always there. Phone, there probably earlier than it should have been. And so because it was always there, automation, tech was secure. It was always known, and so therefore I thought it was a great idea and it carried minimal risk. Whereas I looked at the other individual in a different generation, they grew up before the internet even existed. At the time, I honestly didn't realize there were people in our workforce that had graduated high school before the internet was made. It was made in 1983. I was born after that. And so they experienced paper growing up. The security, the stability, something you can touch, something you can see, something that you can rely on because it's there. They saw tech happen, but they saw the issues with tech. They saw new protocols, new automation occur, and then the lost data, the hindrances. And so because of that, we both have tremendous value, but we couldn't adapt and first understand unless we looked at what was occurring at the behavior patterns and the formative years behind that. And so we were able to come up with a solution to automate, to streamline, by having the paper backup file. See, when we look at organizations, we talk about legacy often. Taking this business, this mission that we have, and growing it and building it greater than we ever could. Something that will outlive us, something that will grow greater than we could ever take it. But do we ask ourselves, who's going to take it after we let it go? Who's going to grow it after we step out of leadership? See, we're not going to be able to grow our legacies keeping the mantra that our generation does it best. We need to begin to seek to adapt, to seek to build bridges, not enable, but take steps forward to help others come in. And with that, we can start to harness everything every generation has to offer. The resiliency of one generation, the work ethic of another, the focus on social impact of one, the innovation of another. As we look at what occurs during their formative years, understand how that leads to behavior, understand how that translates to values, we as leaders can begin to build bridges of what was and appeared to be chasms across generations. And with those bridges, create a pathway for the experience and knowledge to go down, and for an innovation and new technology and new ideas to be brought up, so that we can truly empower our rising leaders to build on and carry the legacy that we're building today. Thank you.
I found a quote from George Orwell that best describes how the different generations usually see each other. And that is, unfortunately, this kind of thinking that is not going to help us build a sustainable future. Instead, we should rather remember that we as leaders can build bridges with what appear to be chasms across generations, and with those bridges, create a pathway for experience and knowledge to go down, and for an innovation, new technology, and new ideas to be brought up, so we can truly empower our rising leaders to build on and carry the legacy we are building today. Now, it may seem a daunting task, bridging the gap between the different generations, but ways that I have personally found to make it much easier is to try to understand and not stereotype, to accept and embrace our differences, to remember that communication is key, to always promote collaborative efforts, and of course, celebrate the milestones. And when we embrace generational diversity, we tend to see a lot of benefits, and not just for organizations, but for people as well. This includes promoting longevity and sustainability within organizations and enabling succession planning. It helps combat the impact of brain drain. And brain drain is typically caused by either immigration, high employee turnover, retirement of skilled workers without skills transfer to younger staff. And organizations that manage generational diversity well turn the brain drain into a brain gain by effective capacity building within the organization, promoting skills transfer and integration, and having sufficient recruitment and being able to retain talent. And by having all these diverse views, an organization can access a range of soft skills and can easily discover adaptability strategies and even potentially tap into new clientele, by bringing in diverse personnel. Now I'd like to present a case study about taking a chance on an unknown kid. So that's a picture of me when I was 11 years old. And when I think of describing myself, I'd like to believe I'm an ordinary person. I envisioned my life at that age with a basic script: go to school, study, get a job, live life, and that was it. But when I completed my studies, like many other young people in South Africa, I experienced unemployment. I almost gave up, but I hung in there and eventually landed at GLS. At the time, GLS was a subsidiary of EOH. And when I entered the workplace with many diverse different age ranges, I had to navigate working with people much older than me. But I never imagined that I'd go on the ride that I have. In 2022, I joined the EOH Youth Solvers when our director Hilton thought that I'd be a good fit. And it seemed quite interesting, so I decided to join. But I could not imagine what would happen next. Being a part of the EOH Youth Solver program, there are different milestones and projects that one works on with other young people across the country and different business units. These projects and milestones really matured me and helped me develop. First one of which was organizing a June roundtable. Very, very daunting task. Working with people you don't really know, having to set up such an amazing event, an important event that spans the different business units. We were also offered leadership training as well, as part of the program. On our leadership training, we were provided the fundamentals of leadership. And this was from a course from the University of Stellenbosch Business School. And this course helped us understand that leaders who serve from a heart of love and purpose are quite important. They made us realize that we need to think of bringing more value to multiple stakeholders and making sure that we result in constructive outcomes for people, the business, society, and/or the environment. Now back to organizing the June Roundtable. It was a roundtable addressing generational diversity. Having to navigate the system and work with other young people to ensure the success of the roundtable was quite incredible. We held some pre-sessions with our panelist, John Philismus, and also a psychologist, Joe Da Silva, where we dissected the topic of generational diversity. For the actual roundtable, we reached out to several business unit leaders, such as Alex Pryor, with vast experience to contribute their voice and thoughts as part of the panel for the roundtable. And I'm proud to say that for our Youth Solvers 2022, we achieved an excellent viewership and participation from the EOH staff. We managed to engage an audience of different age groups within the organization. As the Youth Solvers, we had a better understanding of the differences between the different age groups that we experience within the workplace and gained insights and gauged the pain points based on the participants' experiences that were shared during the roundtable. Another key aspect of being part of the Youth Solvers also looked at volunteerism, something I'm quite passionate about. As the Youth Solvers, we were involved in the Youth Tech Expo. So the Youth Tech Expo was in collaboration with eGov. The expo provided access to ICT opportunities to youth in Gauteng. And the team also took part in a Careers Day workshop with one of our SED partners, Cooler Education. The main aim of this 2-day careers workshop was to provide learners within Cooler's existing programs with a view of different careers available out there. Our visit as EOH both excited the learners and the Cooler Education staff and prompted them to potentially look at expanding the careers workshop to a week and have more companies involved as well. Being part of the Youth Solvers program, I was able to involve some of my colleagues from my business unit to understand the importance of volunteerism. And it was great to realize that being part of this program had even inspired more of my colleagues at GLS to participate in these volunteerism initiatives. People spanning different generations, now inspired and wanting to make a difference. And I'm so proud of that. Another key part of our program was the implementation of an SED project. For SED project, when we were first provided this task, it was very daunting. Trying to understand and to know what type of impact we could make with the funds provided to us and the resources. Us as the Youth Solvers sat around a table, throwing around different ideas, not really being sure where to direct our resources. We then came across an organization called Cooler Education, and Cooler Education assists over 21 schools within the Umzinyathi district municipality. They have over 6,000 learners and 200 educators. And our partnership with them looks to impact all these learners and educators by providing resources needed. And when we thought about what resources Cooler Education would need, particularly with their existing programs, there was quite a few ideas that sprung up from our Youth Solvers. And that was immersing other young people from disadvantaged areas with the necessary ICT skills and preparing them for the new coming generation with much needed exposure to fourth industrial revolution related skills. And also tackling something we felt was extremely important, which is job readiness skills. Working together with our advisors, particularly Venetia, who told us the importance of having a very holistic view in social economic development, making sure that we integrate skills development and also enterprise and supplier development. We then realized that we needed to make this project bigger than what we thought it would be. We then had the idea to establish 2 ICT hubs where local communities within rural KZN would have access to computers, hardware computers, and internet connectivity. There would also be provision of a mobile educational application to the learners within Cooler's existing programs. And this would assist them with boosting learner performance in subjects such as English, mathematics, and science, which is required to enter tertiary education. This really was a stepping stone to a holistic view to tackling the lack of ICT skills within rural KZN and South Africa. And as mentioned earlier, through the guidance of Venetia, she showed us that to have proper sustainable transformation, it is extremely important to merge these 3 concepts together so that we can promote skilled workforce, economic activity, and eventually have job creation. As part of our SED project, we also partnered with Brandon, Brandon is a developer who owns EduHub. EduHub is an application that helps young learners across South Africa with the current educational curriculum. By supporting Brandon, we were able to help him expand his application and extend exposure to tech-based solutions to educating young people in our country. Brandon has now been linked with many other organizations, and there have been quite a few news articles speaking about his newly developed application, STEM Code Africa, which looks at making coding much easier for young children. Now, I'm quite proud to present that as the Youth Solvers 2022, our project has had significant impact. Through our partnership with Cooler Education and Brandon with his EduHub app, we provided much needed exposure to fourth industrial revolution related skills and job readiness skills within rural KZN, with over 232 young people having strengthened their digital literacy and job readiness skills through participation in Cooler Education's 5-day course that they hosted, using the resources provided by the Youth Solvers. There were over 36 people, mostly young people, who gained access to employment through the digital hubs that we helped establish in Rockstrift. These two digital hubs and job readiness hubs are currently operating, and there's hopes to establish a third for the community in Rockstrift. I believe that we have achieved a lot as the Youth Solvers, and it is fitting for me to mention that this year's theme for Youth Month is actively embracing social economic gains of our democracy. And the work done by the team truly captures the gains of democracy. I recall a time when my sister was going through varsity, and she was part of the group where they experienced the shift from submitting handwritten assignments and projects to typed and printed work. Now, my sister's 12 years older than me, and I only recall this because she alleges that I used to scribble in her notes and her projects. I was only like 7 years old at the time, but I don't recall that part. However, she needed to learn about working on computers and needed to adapt quickly. And one would think that that was a challenge presented back in those days. However, there are a lot of young people out there in our country currently who do not have access to computers or internet connectivity. I can tell you a story of a friend of mine who I studied with when I was going through tertiary. She was very smart. She was very good in the subjects that we had done. But she unfortunately failed one subject in our first year, which was ICT skills. This wasn't because she was lazy. In fact, it was because she never had access to a computer or laptop prior to entering the tertiary institution. So you can imagine someone with so much potential having this obstacle to overcome now, submitting each and every assignment and project digitally. So now it wasn't just understanding the content of the work. Now it's understanding working with a computer so that you can submit these projects and assignments. Fortunately for her, she was on a bursary. So in her second semester, she received a laptop. And through our advice, with just playing around with the technology, immersing in it, she was able to quickly catch up. Now she's completed a master's and she works for an Internet of Things company, super stellar and super knowledgeable about ICT things. And this was literally just because she was provided access to the necessary resources to empower her. Now I'd like to talk about some of the accomplishments and achievements since joining the Youth Solver program. And I'm quite honored to share that through the leadership training, working with other young people, being offered mentorship within the organization, I've been able to grow as an individual and be more involved in the business unit that I'm in. I've managed to be promoted to higher positions, taking some of the learnings from the older generation who had a vested interest in my development. I was able to increase my involvement and engagement within the business unit with our management by adding my views and perspective to business decisions, working on projects that I felt like could take us to the next level. And being nominated by my peers and eventually winning a CEO award from EOH for being a fierce enabler really captured the growth and development I was provided through being part of the Youth Solvers program. And that wouldn't have happened without the intervention and the sharing of knowledge through other experienced people within the organization. And personally, I have a better understanding of my strengths and how to best utilize them in my career and personal life. And I'm currently planning to go and upskill myself and go do my master's. And I have a renewed sense of connection to my purpose ever since being part of the program. And there's one more thing that I'd like to share as well, which was an amazing way to top the journey that I have been on for the past 2 years. And that was being selected and being offered an opportunity to attend the One Young World Summit. One Young World is a forum of young leaders across the globe. It is the birthchild of Kate Robinson, who believed in the power of the youth. This platform is one of the largest network of change makers with representation from over 190 different countries, and linking these change makers around the world with each other and corporate. One Young World hosts an annual summit where these change makers meet and share experiences, ideas, and try to find solutions to plenary challenges plaguing society. And last year at the summit, hosted in Belfast in Ireland, I was honored to be selected to attend. Being at the One Young World Summit and having attended the formal and informal workshop had empowered me to view impact in a new way, emphasizing the importance of collaboration, reminding us not to discount thinking out of the box. To show resilience in implementing our initiatives has given me a renewed view of challenges around me. And I hope to take these new learnings, both from the summit and being part of the EOH 2022 Youth Solver cohort, to future projects that I'll be working on. Now, some of the key learnings from my experience and also how generational diversity can shape the future. The EOH 2022 Youth Solver cohorts learned a lot from being part of the program, particularly from the older generation who played an active role in our development. They have helped shape the person that I am, and I believe they have equipped me with the necessary skills to continue growing and eventually become a role model to others. And they have taught me quite important lessons, such as being authentic, not being afraid to jump, not being afraid to ask for help. There are people out there who are rooting for you, even when you don't know it. Collaborative efforts will typically yield bigger results and impact more lives. And to truly be a good leader, one needs to understand the needs of the team and work together with them to achieve our goals. And before I close off, through my journey with the SED project and being part of the Youth Sober cohort and becoming a One Young World ambassador, I've come to realize that my greatest strength lies not just in what I can achieve myself, but in the profound impact that I can have on others. And it's in recognizing this ability to uplift and empower those around me that I found my true purpose. And I'd like to thank EOH as an organization, more specifically, Melisha and Venetia, for paving the way for future change makers and giving us the opportunity to make a difference, not only within the organization, but in the lives of those who were impacted by the work done by us youth solvers. They have shown us how generational diversity, when well managed, is an asset. From where I started to where I am today, I could have never imagined this young girl would go on such an adventure. And yes, Melisha, it is a long lasting legacy that you are leaving with us. And I'd like to thank you and just leave you with a couple of last words. There is no future proofing without involving the youth. And this is coming from a future change maker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, fellow youth solver. Everything that you said gave me goosebumps because I literally had a similar journey with you. And everything that you've said is facts. I was honored to be on a journey with you last year as one of the One Young World ambassador in the UK. And you gave a talk, and everyone was shocked and impressed. And when I heard that you are on speaker, I was like, yay, that's a perfect pick. And I wanted to share that what's a millennial without doing the peace sign? What is a millennial without a peace sign? So thank you so much for the incredible talk around generational diversity. Melisha is a good example of a firm believer in youth, the youth. She always says that look at the room that you are in, who is presented and who is not, especially when it concerns matters around diversity. And one of the key benefits that I took out from today's session is that diverse views presents diverse solution. That is powerful. And now to open up our Q&A, please ask any question that you have for myself and Mmaphuthi. Any questions? Also adding that being part of the Youth Solver in your age has incredibly changed my life. But let's go to first question from one of my favorite people who was also a Youth Solver, Chanel.
Hey Malta, hey Mmaphuthi. I wanted to know, being in your group and being there with you and everything unfolding, how you managed to have the capacity and the energy and the strength to carry on looking at the hardships for you to address them and still maintain a career.
Thank you for that, Chanel. And I will be very honest with you, juggling a lot of things is a daunting task. But what kept me going was remembering the impact that we were going to make, the lives that we were going to change, and also remembering that I was going to work with amazing young people within our Youth Solvers cohort. So I felt like I couldn't let you guys down. I couldn't let myself down. I couldn't let my friends down because being a young Black child in South Africa, I've seen the struggle of not having resources and not having the things that others might take for granted. So having the opportunity to provide these resources or to make a difference for others who were not as fortunate as I was, it kept me going. It energized me, honestly. Yeah.
And I agree with you, Mmaphuthi. For me, it's showing the next girl that looks like me that is possible. That also you can just be in the same position that I have, and the access that I have, and it's open to anyone and everyone. And when it comes to juggling, life can be so much, but also it's how much you want it, how much you are willing to go for it, and like Mmaphuthi said, the change that you're about to impact, that gives you the courage to take on so much more.
That's so true, Malta. And like you just mentioned now, it's really incredible how one doesn't realize that someone is looking at you as a role model. Someone is looking at you and thinking, wow, I can make it. You know, it's possible for me to go from where I am to where she is. And that's something we tend to forget a lot.
I honestly want to say to both of you, I am, and I know that you hear this a lot, but I am so proud of you guys, and you are very inspirational. And I think that the hardest thing that people don't acknowledge is the vulnerability that it takes for you to do what you do. So, the amount of strength that you have packed into those little bodies of yours, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Chanel.
Thank you so much. Any question coming in? Anyone who would like to share a comment, but also I hope everyone is looking forward to joining the Youth Solvers next year. Siobhan.
Ladies, how are you?
Getting yourself?
Good, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you. And one comment that you made that really resonated with me is that representation matters. And I think it was maybe last year or beginning of this year when you and Malta did a little interview on the Salvas TV where you were talking about the summit that you attended and how representation matters. And for a lot of us, we don't often believe that we have the capacity or the determination to move forward and to be in industries that are maybe male dominated or that have other challenges. So I just wanted to say thank you for always being there to encourage us as young people. And I had quite a chuckle when when the slide came up that says it slaps different or it hits different. So that is something I use a lot day to day. But representation does matter, and as EOH, we have a lot of young people, and you ladies are very inspiring. And I want to be one of those people and be like, I can do that. I have the encouragement, and thank you for what you do. And as Chanel said, the vulnerability that it takes to do what you do and to be so transparent. So thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any question before I close Q&A and go to the incredible Melisha? So if there isn't any question, I would like to say thank you, Mmaphuthi. You are such an incredible speaker, such an incredible person, and being with you in this journey has been life-changing for me. And then also, I just want to say that in my journey of being a youth solver, being an employee in the company, every chance that I've gotten was from a woman saying that you can do it. Do not be scared. And what I've come to learn is that fear is in our mind. It's not a real thing. Although I struggle with it from time to time, every single time when I deliver something, I am absolutely nervous. But what I can share with you is that if not me, then who? If not you, then who? You know, and you got the power. It lies with you, and you don't know how to begin. But the only thing that you can do is to just start. Start with what you have. Start with what you know, and the way will find you. All right. Thank you so much, Melisha.
Thank you, ladies. I always call my youth solvers my tigers. And I posted on LinkedIn yesterday that I actually find Mmaphuthi to be my Navy SEAL. And what she didn't share with you was that she was part of the Navy. And if you want any statistics on soccer, she'll be able to give it to you. And when I think it's Purusha that says that the future is in good hands, indeed it is, because each and every one of us has the ability to break the mold around social and structural constructs that ideally dictate the way we should be. And my challenge to all exes out there is that let's just get out of the way, because I think they are duly capable of challenging the stuff that we had to face in the workplace, which is very different. So, Mmaphuthi, in the words of my daughter Kambili, who is 14, so she's a Gen X, she would Gen Z, she would have said, "You ate that. You truly ate that." So, thank you everyone for your time, and thank you, Mmaphuthi, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you, Mmaphuthi, Malta. That was lovely. So in closing, I would just like to recognize all of our partners and our sponsors: Essentia, Business Engage, Netbank, AECI, Anglo Gold Ashanti, EOH, Kini, Pfizer, Vodacom, and LSEG. A special sorry guys, I was standing. A special acknowledgement and thank you to all involved in the planning of today's coffee session, to the Voice of Change community. As agents of change, let our voices resonate with the power to dismantle the walls of unconscious bias. The journey towards a bias-free society begins with us, our voices of change. To our attendees and participants, thank you for joining us this afternoon and the meaningful engagement.